as the I can do it all by myself is, you know, the John Wayne farmer out there in the field doing it all is such a mistake. Growing food has always been a community enterprise. And we have here today with us several farmers and a non-farmer who have developed wonderful ways of supporting the work of the farm and getting the community to participate with them. So we have Florent Sebon from France, who will talk about how participants support the farming that he does. And then we'll go to Nathalie Kien in Norway, who actually facilitates, I believe, 3 different CSAs. The Norwegians have been able to grow the number of CSAs in Norway at an astonishing pace by getting the members to run their own CSAs with a little help from some trained farmers. And then we'll go to Brian in Portland, Oregon, who has a highly participatory CSA. And finally, we'll end up in Japan with Shinji Hashimoto, who from the very beginning has farmed together with other farmers and high amount of participation from their customers. So let's begin with Florent. Please take it away. Tell us about what you're doing there in France.
Hello, I'm happy to be with you. Can you hear me well? Yeah. So my name is Florent Sebon, and I'm from the Ferme Sapus, which is a farm near Paris. We're about 90 kilometers from Paris. And we've our farm is 10 years old. We're 3 people working on it, and we're doing vegetables, fruits, herbs, and a little bit of honey. And we are all of the products that are coming out of our farm is going through different CSAs. And we've got 150 family members that have contract with us for the vegetables, and we have specific contracts for herbs that we transform into herbal tea and things like that at the farm. So that's the picture. And if we go to the next slide, the reason why we have this session today is also to show why we should not farm alone. And if we go through the history of our farm, we didn't start alone. We were helped by friends, people from the village. It was really a very good feeling to see that from the very beginning, when we had to set the greenhouses and when we had to do the first work in the field, we never were 2 or 3. We always were many, because we felt that people really were willing to participate in the project. So it has never been a farm where we were alone trying to feed some people that do not participate. We always had these people integrated in the project. If we go to the next slide, which is a picture of our farm from above, basically you see that we have here the fields for vegetables and the trees that are next to it. And on that, I wanted to go back on the history in terms of access to land. Both of us, Sylvie and I, my wife, we don't have parents that are farmers. So for us, having access to land was a key issue. And we went through a real journey to try and have access to land. We discussed with many actors and tried to discuss with old farmers, tried to discuss with city council, tried to discuss with the different actors that have land. But it was a 3 years journey, and in the end, we finally had access to land by responding to an announcement made by the City Council of Csa, which is the little village where we are. And for us, this is really important because this is not a project um, that we carry on alone, but we are there because a city council decided to put us here. We're renting the land to the city, to the village, and it is much more than having to pay a rent every year. Basically, we feel that the land on which we are, there were projects before where when there was another city council elected. Before that, the projects were doing a supermarket, and when there was a new election, the new city council decided to set up an organic farm and published an announcement to use this land differently. So we would never have access to land without this willingness of the mayor, which decided to transform this land. If we go to the next slide, something which is also important for us is the fact that we are producing food, of course, but around us there are many members, and they're making our farm nicer and nicer every day. We're not artists, but the fact that we have a few artists around our members is changing our farm on a day-to-day basis because they make it nicer, and we feel more at ease to work in this farm because it's nicer every day. Because here you see paintings from one of the member, you have sculptures from another member, and we're trying to do it participatory also on several places in the farm. But for us, the fact that art has a place and that we are not bringing art in our farm, but the fact that the members are bringing it is really important because they feel ownership in the project and they try to transform it so that it's nicer. So that's one of the point we feel is very important. Another one in the next slide is the fact that people participate also in transforming our farms so that it's more coherent with citizens' wishes. We feel clearly in the society that there is a demand for farms that are more agroecological, for for planting trees, for putting more I don't know the English word, water, small water, and to try and respect biodiversity and reinforce biodiversity in all our actions. Here you see in the picture is the one day we did actually for last 3 years we did several days like that where the members were invited to come and plant with us trees, so that we reinforce biodiversity in all the aspects of the farm. The next slide is the, the the weekly delivery. These are paintings that have been made also by a friend of a member. So I felt it was nicer to put you paintings sometimes than pictures. Here he painted the weekly delivery where we are in a sort of warehouse, and so they're all coming to pick up their box on an every week basis. So we're delivering on Fridays, and we're delivering every Friday of the year. So we're doing 50 delivery in the year. We're only making 2 weeks for Christmas where we don't deliver. And for us, they're coming to bring to get their vegetables, but we are coming to get energy. And every time on Fridays when we go to the vegetable delivery, we come back with loads of energy for the whole week because they're questioning us, they're discussing with us. We're discussing about vegetables, about food, but also about politics, about the whole of the world. And we're not alone. If we have a problem, we share it. That's really the philosophy Elizabeth was actually talking about. Where traditional farmers here, when they have a problem, they keep it for them. When we have a problem, what we try to do is to say that this problem is a problem not for our family, but for the 151 family, our family plus the 150 members. And what you see is that it's way easier to solve problems when you are many brains than when you are 2 or 3 brains. And people around us, the members, they all have different connections here and there, and they all know different things that we don't know. So when the farm faces a problem, it's a problem for everybody. The next one is for us. It's also very important to have fun. And so we're having 2 or 3 parties, big parties a year, where we celebrate, where we have games. Here there's a show, we have theater, we have small concerts, and it's very important for us that members feel ownership in the project also by having fun on the farm and meeting people that they could not meet in the normal life. What is really important for us is to realize that when we meet members and we realize that actually they've met with other members through the farm, they didn't know them before, and now they go and have a drink together. So we feel proud because we feel that the project is actually linking people, and that's really our aim here at the farm and with the members, is to create more links in the community. The next slide is the same thing when we do parties like that. We always have a huge place for children, because for us it's really important to work with them, propose them different kind of games. We also welcome classes from school. We have different animations for them, and we receive different schools from different ages. Next slide is the group when we party once a year, and we're all together, and so we share the same thing. And maybe to sum up with the slide after, for us, making our farm, the CSAs is helping us in making our farm more sustainable. So clearly, financially, the CSA make our farm more sustainable because the whole of the harvest is financed by the members for the whole year. But not only financially. For us, it solves one of the big sustainability problem, which is climate change, because we're facing new dilemmas with climate change, and the security that is brought by the members, solving problems, being happy even when the harvests are not there, and celebrating when they're there, is helping us in trying solutions to adapt to climate change. So for us, this is really important, and it's making our farm also more sustainable in social terms, because what we see in farming outside CSA systems in our country is that farmers are alone. They're not having a very happy life, while we are a group. And I'll finish with the last slide. We celebrated our 10 years, and the group was there. We were very happy. So one more slide, where everybody was in the field, and we did a big 10 to celebrate our birthday. Thank you.
Thank you. I love your number 10 there. That's great. So now we'll move to Norway, where we'll hear from Natalie about the system there, how people get involved.
Hi, everyone. My name's Nat, or Natalie. I'm actually from Australia, but I've lived in Norway for the last 5 years. I came here, and I want everybody to know this. I came here because they have free university education for everybody. And so I did my master's in agroecology here. And I stayed because I became a manager of the local CSA farm in the university town. And then I took over a couple of more CSA farms in and around Oslo. Currently, at the start of this year, I had 3. Now I've just got 2. Yeah, so here's my presentation. We can just skip straight to the next slide there. I'm not seeing it in full screen. That's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
There
there we go. Full
Yep.
screen and next slide. That's perfect. So Norway. I'm in Oslo. Okay. On this slide, as Elizabeth mentioned at the start of our session, Norway has increased the number of farms so rapidly, and it might be due to this really highly participatory model that we have. So our first farm was in 2006, and it's not owned by a farmer. It's owned by a group of people, so a board of people that became like an association, a collective. They hired a farmer and a manager, and they are still the biggest CSA farm in Norway. Now we're up to 95 in 2021. So a lot of these farms that we have are modeled on the very first farm. Can we go to the next slide? So we have, the way I interpret it is through agroecology, through an agroecological lens. We have this principle of knowledge sharing with all our members, and they are so critical to how the farms function. Here's a photo of everybody sorting out the garlic before we planted it. Let's go to the next slide. So here's a little bit about my farms. I'm the manager at this farm, which is called Dystujorda, which sadly means misery ground or misery earth, but it's an old name. It's a very old farm. It's hundreds of years old. And we rent the corner of this farm. And we rent this little corner here right in the middle of town. We are right in the center of town. That's the high school across from us and the main supermarket across the other road. And there we have about 190 members, a lot of kids. It's 6 years old, so a lot of kids are free, under 5, completely free. So a lot of kids have grown up with us. It's about $450 per adult share. And one share is for 1 year. We don't do family shares. We believe families are made up of all sorts of different people these days. So we get people to put the building blocks together and make up their own family membership. The share of our Norwegian farms is very important or very interesting because people harvest their own food. Of the 95 farms, CSA farms that we have in Norway, there's only one that does only boxes. The rest of us, all our members, do all their harvesting all by themselves. So we have to think about the design of our farm with people at the center so that old people, young people, disabled people can all walk through our field and see everything and pick it. Okay, next slide. This is another farm where I work. I'm on a seasonal contract and we're getting to the point where the Norwegian tax office thinks that that might be illegal and they need to hire me as a staff member. So that's good. I've been pushing them for a couple of years and I'm not a staff member yet. But I love this farm. I'm a member of it too. It's right on the northern boundary of Oslo. And last year we won Oslo's Garden Prize for Best Community Garden. So it also is run by members. We have a board. They're all volunteers, and they drive the decisions of how many members we'll have, what we should grow and things like that with, of course, my input. It's about the same price. There they do have a family membership, and nobody counts how much food we take. It's all owned by the people. Let's move on to the next slide. This is Kjørkeby, the second farm. Shirkaby CSA farm again, photo from a slightly different angle. You can see this water in the background. That's actually Oslo's drinking water. So Oslo is on the other side of that lake and then down the hill. Look at this photo and you'll see what I mean by we designed the farm with the members at the heart of it. Right in the center is a long table for parties and discussions and picnics. And then there's it's not in this photo actually, but now there's a pizza oven, which is awesome. I had nothing to do with that. The members did it all. They organize themselves into different working groups throughout the year, and they get guidance from me as their farmer. So at this farm and at the other farm at Disagreements, we have a working group that runs the compost bins, and they produce hot compost. So that I make them turn it every week, and we get enough hot compost to use in our grow tunnel there, which is great. I can't ask for more than that. We also at this farm have a working group for trees and herbs. So all of the fruit trees, all of the berry bushes, all of the perennial herbs and flowers are grown by that group. I basically have nothing to do with it. Then there's a group that I manage and give pedagogical oversight to, training to, that runs the what do you call it in English? Greenhouse, the polytunnel there. So I teach them how to look after the tomatoes, how to take the side shoots of the tomatoes. I teach them how to differentiate between the cucumbers and how to companion plant the tomatoes with basil and things like that. And they also set it all up at the start of the season. And then just yesterday, actually, they washed it completely and put all the new compost in there from their compost group. So the compost is also right at the middle of this field here. And it's, you can see it's done with market garden style. So we have 75 centimetre beds, but my pathways between each bed is much bigger than a market garden. This is so that people not so used to walking on farms can walk down the alleyways down the pathways between the different beds and feel confident that they're not standing on anything, then they're not going to fall over, and they don't have to squeeze between the big bushes of kale and cabbage. So we really think about people not used to walking on farms being able to confidently and safely navigate around the farm, because like I said, they do a lot of the work, and they have to come every week or any day that they want to pick themselves. So about their harvesting, I send a weekly email. I send an update about what is happening on the field, the good and the bad, and I tell them what they can harvest and how much, and then they just do it themselves. Next slide. Within Norwegian culture and within many cultures around the world, there's a concept of community action together. You know, in the olden days, people all from one village would get together to help one neighbor build a new house, for example. This is very strong in Norwegian culture, much stronger than I see in Australia. And it's called dugnad. This concept of dugnad, that I badly translate as working bee, is really important to our model of CSA farming in Norway, because without dugnader, or without this strong imperative need within all Norwegians to participate in community days, then I don't think it would happen. So our neighbours in Sweden, they don't have this concept. So none of their CSA farms are like this. It's just in Norway. So a dugnad, or a working bee, is when anybody can come to the farm, and all the members can come to the farm and they participate with me, their farmer, in working on the field. Sometimes I'll get them to do really terrible jobs, and sometimes they'll be really good jobs. They happen twice a week. For me, I run them on a Thursday night and then on either a Saturday or a Sunday, depending on the farms. I don't have to always be there either. Sometimes they could just be run by one of the working groups, or I write a big jobs list, really clear where the tools are, where the job is that needs to be done, add photos to it and explain to them clearly how they do it. And then they go ahead and do it. And I don't mind if they make a mistake. It's their farm. Let's go to the next slide. So one of the ways that I like to run my doognads or working bees, is to mentor and nurture those people that really show commitment. And by doing that, I'm building a core group of people that have a really strong commitment to the farm, and they might become my board members next year. I recommend anybody starting a CSA farm or already doing one, that you try and fill your board with people that you work well with and people that have shown commitment to the farm, and get the right people on the board. I also use pedagogical teaching methods all the time. I'm all the time pointing things out, showing people what I see, showing them the ecology of the field and explaining to them, just like Florian mentioned in the last presentation, the biodiversity and the ecology of the field. I want to inspire them to be looking after that too. Interestingly, when I survey my members at the end of the year, ecology is the least important thing to them to hear in a newsletter. Okay. So by running these doognads, these working bees like this, I want to give people knowledge. So on one of my farms, we have a lot more of it's Csa, the farm up on northern Oslo. This farm is more of a hobby farm. We invite people to become members only if they're going to commit to this to be their serious hobby. They have to do at least 12 hours as a doognud on the field with me each year, but most of them, gosh, I'd say they'd be doing nearly 100. Yeah. Next slide. We do lots of social activities, all sorts of things, and I try and encourage members to do that. Both of the central social areas have, a nice fire pit where people can sit down beside, and now they both have a pizza oven too, which is really cozy. Next slide. Things go wrong. I'm not fully in charge of the farm. We all are. Things do go wrong. And sometimes when there's a whole heap of butterfly or moths laying their eggs on my cabbage, I get a little bit grumpy. But, it just means a little bit less cabbage for all the members sometimes, because I will get to the farm sometimes and I'll see the row cover is off, or the gate is left open and the chickens are in there. That happens. We just remind people how to look after a working farm. We share those stories, the good and the bad. Next. I've mentioned working groups, and here's someone from our compost working group building a new hot compost. But to the left of him, I've got a little PDF here about how to thin carrots. Without being mechanized, we're a small farm, we're all hands. We don't have big machines at all, or small ones. Thinning carrots takes a long time, usually. I don't do it. I get the members to do it. And they get to do it when the carrots are a little bit big so they can get a snack. So they love doing it. The kids love doing it. And if you're farming, thinning carrots with your hands is one of the most time-consuming things there is. Next slide. Just to finish, here's the first doognud. It was in April this year. The lake where Oslo's water comes from is still completely frozen in the background. the ground is frozen about 10 centimeters deep, and there's still snow on a lot of the ground. So we were up here working on that day. We have lots of buckets in front of the compost bin in this photo. They're covering the rhubarb. So we're forcing the rhubarb early in spring, and we're clearing a lot of the beds. We have permanent beds. We're clearing a lot of beds to get them ready. So people are even so enthusiastic that they'll be up there when it's about 4 degrees and everything is frozen. I can rely on all these members, but it is my job to cultivate this sense of community. Yeah, thanks for listening to me.
Great, thank you. That was wonderful. And from frozen Norway, we will go to Portland, Oregon. Brian, please share your story of Zinger Farms.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brian, and I farm at Zinger Farm. And I came to farming about 12 years ago. I was an attorney, and to keep my sanity, I went volunteering at a CSA farm and fell in love with it and decided to do an apprenticeship at Zinger Farm, and wrote my own job description and was hired on, and have been there ever since. So Portland, Oregon is on the west coast of the states, just above California. We have a Mediterranean climate. And next slide. So we're a nonprofit farm. We lease land from the city. And as you can see, we're surrounded by homes and warehouses and industrial sites. And our land includes quite a bit of wetland. So that's why the city owns the land, to prevent flooding on nearby roads and to preserve that environment. But then we farm on the uphill portions away from the wetland. And most of our vegetables, about 90%, go to feed about 180 families per week. We farm on about a hectare. And our nonprofit organization does quite a bit of work, and we just have 2 staff members who farm, myself and one other person, and then a crew of apprentices. I'll talk about that later. Our organization was formed about 26 years ago, and it's grown ever since. And I'll talk a little bit about that change. Next slide. So this is our mission statement, and I'll just say that over the past 12 years that I've been a part of this organization, our perspective on our work in the community has changed from focusing mostly on food access, which is just providing food to people and making sure that they are secure in the amount of calories that they're getting, to include growing to food justice, where we're looking more at inequities within the food system. And then finally, working towards food sovereignty. So that would include things like racial justice, and making sure that our community is involved in the decision-making at our nonprofit. The neighborhood that we're located in Portland, Oregon, is very diverse. It's the most diverse neighborhood in Portland, and our city has about, and the surrounding suburbs have about 1 million residents. And we have our refugee intake center for our city is located in our neighborhood, so a lot of folks remain in our neighborhood. And so this would be a good time to share our land acknowledgement, which is that this land is located on the junction of 2 major rivers. So there are quite a few indigenous groups inhabiting this area: the Clackamas Chinook, Tualatin Kalapuya, Wasco Rishram, Multnomah peoples, and other folks who made their homes up and down the thousands of miles of river. And this is unceded territory. And Oregon and Portland have a history of racial exclusion, exclusion from property rights, and so on. And so we're really on a journey to create more authentic relationships with our Indigenous community and other minority communities. Next slide. That seems like let's just go to the next slide. Great. So when our organization was started, there was a farmer on the land who was running a CSA just as a for-profit business, and then a nonprofit organization was started to host children at the farm. And it grew to the point where we were having 10,000 children come out each year on field trips through their schools. And these were just general topics on wetland ecology and farming practices. But over the course of the years, we have tried to focus on Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. And so we've developed a partnership with our local school district where every student in the 5th grade comes out to the farm 3 times each year. And it's lessons that complement their curriculum. So an example would be talking about, the rotation of the Earth around the sun and the tilt of the axis and shortening day length and the amount of eggs you get from a chicken based on the length of the day and so on. Next slide. We also have a program, our Community Chef program, which is led by women of color. And these are women from many different places around the world who are sharing their traditional cooking cultures and recipes. They lead workshops, they do demonstrations at Csa Pickup, they lead community dinners around certain topics. And many of these women are also starting businesses, and so they're incubating their business and just learning leadership skills through this program. Next slide. Like I said, we run a farm apprenticeship. This is really designed for folks who have little to no experience farming. And as our program has evolved, we've really tried to center Black, Indigenous, and people of color who would face barriers to farming in rural areas just because of conservative mindset in the rural area, because of the racial makeup in the rural area. And so we're really proud of our farm apprenticeship program. 65% of our graduates since 2010 are currently farming, most of them as farm owners or managers. It's a 7.5-month program, and they do receive a stipend, which is about equivalent to minimum wage. And we get 100 applicants each year for just 4 positions. Next slide. So we have 2 CSA pickups. One is on farm, and we really try to outreach through partner organizations that are identified with Black, Indigenous, and people of color, so that our membership is more reflective of our neighborhood. We have a sliding scale in our CSA, which is a little bit unique. You can either pay more than the standard price or pay less. And the reason why is that, if you're making above a living wage, you ought to be contributing more so that those who make less than a living wage are able to pay less. And really trying to not be a CSA that is about just supporting the farmer, but also supporting the other members in the CSA. That's a recent development. Before that, we had a scholarship fund, which was a fund that members could optionally contribute to, and then people would have to apply to get that discount. And we just find much more participation through a sliding scale where people self-select. We receive about 5 times more in donations, and we are able to distribute, 5 times more in discounts because of this. In the States, we have a food stamp program, which is a program where food is subsidized by the government if your income is low. And so there's some difficulty in the States for farms accepting food stamps. And so we have a local CSA coalition that represents about 60 CSA farms in Oregon. And they process the food stamps for us. And they also run a matching program. So for every dollar you spend in food stamps, you get an additional dollar matching funds. So with a combination of the sliding scale and this matching fund program, our lowest income members will pay just 25% of the cost of the CSA. Next slide. This is a program that I started about 6 years ago, and we connect local farms with health clinics, and we do a CSA pickup at the health clinic. So this started off, like I said, about 6 years ago when 25 patients at our local government health clinic picked up shares at the clinic. There's a community health worker there who was able to check in with them about appointments and their condition, their, like how their health is doing. All of these patients have diet-related chronic illnesses. And the wonderful thing about a CSA, and we can go to the next slide, is that, it's grown to the point where we now have 4 farms delivering vegetables to 300 patient families at 7 health centers in the area. And this is funded by grants from government, grants from foundation, and then it's also funded by our low-income government insurance program, Medicaid, which has a flex funding option. And the best example I can give you of that is if somebody has asthma and their asthma gets worse during a heat wave, it's much easier and much more cost effective to provide an air conditioner to that person rather than have them go to urgent care with an asthma attack. And so this flex funding is meant to deal with health issues outside of the traditional health system. That's been pretty hard to obtain, and we're pretty proud that we were able to get this funding available. But I was going to, and now we can go to the next slide. This is sort of our logic model, our theory of change through this program. And it's just wonderful to be a part of a CSA because you get 26 weeks of vegetables, some that you've never eaten before, like kohlrabi or fennel or rutabaga. These are not popular crops in the States. But when these patient families get these vegetables, they're exposed to new foods. They develop like new eating habits. We give them a lot of support in how to cook those meals, demonstrations from our community chefs. And we're really hoping to change their eating habits over the long term. And this works much, I think that CSA is just the most powerful model for this type of behavior change that can really impact people's health. There's a lot to say about this program, and it's going to continue to grow into the future. We've secured more funding, but I think I'll leave it there. And so the next slide. And you can find out more about all of our programs on our website. We have an example of our sliding scale up there if you're interested. And thanks so much for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. And our last speaker, we'll go to Japan, to Shinji Hashimoto.
Yeah, I add some slides. So can try from my side. And if it's difficult, oh yeah, this is the one that I sent to you, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Shinji, you just can tell me when to change the slide.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Shinji Hashimoto from Japan. And actually, I used to live in Rio de Janeiro when I was a high school student. So I used to speak some Portuguese and maybe bonjour over there, but boa noite here. It's the middle of night in Japan. I farm in middle of a mountain in west part of Japan called the Tamba area. And our area is famous for this Take movement, which is very similar system to the CSA, community supported agriculture. We have started this Take system since 1975. And my farm, I grow about 50 to 60 different kinds of vegetables over the year. And I also raise chickens for eggs for 200. Me and another farmer, we have about 200 consumers supporting our farm. And I also used to be the board of urgency. Now I resigned. Okay, next. Main source of my farm is from the chickens, and I use the chicken compost to raise the vegetables. And next, yeah. And for the rice, I use the duck for weeding. Duck is very efficient, eating weeds, and also supply the oxygen by swimming around the paddy. And they also eat many of the paste. So the farmer has to, we don't have to use weed side. Okay, next. This Take Farmers group was formed in 1975 with 30 different producers. It was around 1970s when Japan has a program of food pollution, such as like Minamata disease in the southern part of Japan, where the factory disposed this mercuries, huge dense amount of mercuries, and fishermen over there become a serious disease. Or the people, because of the use of a heavy pesticides, some people had some problem. So there was this Dr. Yasuda from Kobe National University. He's an agronomist. He really warned to the people that we should avoid eating the food in the supermarket. And he organized this food pollution seminar in a Kobe city. And one of the agriculture teacher from my village called Mr. Kondo met with this Professor Yasuda, and they discuss and decide to bring all the farmers and consumers together to form into the Take group. Okay, next. So we established this democratic organization, and farmers has been organized, and the consumer also being organized, and we have discussion for twice a year for discussing about what kind of a vegetable will grow in the field, or what kind of a program we should do together with consumers. So even about the price of a box will be settled down with a discussion. Okay, next. And also the consumer used to visit the farm and help in the weed and weeding and the planting and different kind of a work. Next. So that they understand about how the farmers are doing in the farm. And not only the helping in the farm, but we also held lots of a party over the year, or even we have like a harvest festival to recruit new members to the take groups. Or when consumers used to be very young and they used to have a child, we used to do lots of summer camping every year. Sometime I bring my chickens and we slaughter the chicken together to show the kids that where the food is from. And we cook together and we always do lots of exchange. This take a group really become popular, and with our 30 producers, there are like a membership of 1,500 families at peak. We used to be the biggest take a group in Japan. Take a group is not in our area, but several CSA type take a groups exist in Japan, and we have this national network called the Japan Organic Agriculture Association, which has been established in 1971. Okay, next. But around 1990, the government sent out this law to equalize the woman's participation in the working place. In Japan, before 1990 or 80, the woman's salary has less. So and the man used to earn lots of money, and Japan see a high economic expansion. So most of the women stay home and they are like a housewife. And these are the main force on the beginning of a take-a movement to support the movement. They have a time to come to the farm and visit the village, and they can do all kind of a management of a consumer group. But after 1990, we see less members because more women join into the company and working. So we don't see lots of volunteers anymore. We decide to focus we try to shift our market to the conventional market. So we brought lots of science, and farmers start doing this soil analysis and like IT chart to calculate how much amount of a compost and mineral fertilizer and organic fertilizer we have to use in order to make a certified beautiful quality vegetable products. Okay, next. And many young also organic farmer visit our area, and some of them become professional organic farmer. Some of them join to the larger like organic rice production group, and also there are younger villagers who turn their agriculture into organic, and even we see lots of processed food. But more I see this kind of a vegetable field, I saw abundant of degraded carrots or second grade cucumber dumped in a field. I start feeling a contradiction, like why we started this organic when we thought about the food issue and try to notice consumers about the problem that we face in a village and rural area. But we like end up our organic farming into the like commercial oriented organic agriculture. Next. And because we brought this scientific knowledge, some people start getting like a prize of high quality organic food with contents of a high vitamin and high sugar contents, and we are like in a newspaper become famous. Okay, next. The number of farmers and the area of the land in our area just keep increasing. And also the organic certified farmers also start increasing. Okay, next. And more farmer visit and young people take part in a farm. There are more than like 70 organic farmers in my village now. Okay, next. But in the 2040, I really face up with a serious flooding. This is the heaviest flooding that I ever see in my farm. Even the old farmer who lived more than like 80 years in a village told me that they never see such a flood before. My farm are all covered with soil, and my house are all covered with stones, and I really wonder how I can recover. But there are lots of volunteers because I really supported by the consumers in the city. They really came and helped me bring my farm back. Next. But this was not the end. The 2016, we see a heaviest snow, and more than like 19 greenhouse has been collapsed in my area. And 2017, the really heavy typhoon came and blown my chicken's house. And 2018, another typhoon came and blown out my greenhouse that repaired from the snow damage. And the 2018 again, that was in July, so it's before August, but we have a heavy rain again, and my field dumped into the muddy rains, and many of the vegetables died. I think it's due to the global warming. I start wondering whether it is possible to continue my farm. I was born in Hiroshima, not this area. I just moved as a new farmer in the 1989. So I'm growing vegetable more than like 30 years here. But I see lots of this climate changing coming every year. I thought that the farming is not, it's really difficult and I cannot continue. So I really felt like maybe I quit the idea of take a farm and go back to my hometown, Hiroshima. Okay, next. When I took a decision to withdraw my farm, one of the huge food co-op with more than like 1 million members came, and they said that they really told me that I should not quit this farm, and they told me why I'm going to quit, and I told them that I produced this certified organic farm with a cucumber with your food co-op, but you really demand this high quality, and I found other farmers dumping the food. So I really feel that the organic farming movement in this village are not more important anymore. So I'm not doing this kind of things anymore. And since my Take a Farmer members are getting older, I really feel like I have no reason to continue this organic farming in the village. Then these food co-op members told me that how they can change and what they can do. So I told them that if we can do in a CSS style with your food co-op members, consumer members, then I can continue. So we change our mode of producing food, focusing rather focusing in a few crops, we decide to do some CSA type of a vegetable box contract with a food corp. That was from last year, and we changed the way that we market to the food corp now. So take a farm that we established in 1970. The consumers are really getting old, and they told me that they are going to close next year. This is one of the reasons that I decided to quit my farm. But instead of ending my farm, I decide to continue with the food corp now. Okay, thank you very much.
That's an amazing story, Shinji. Up and down. What a ride you've been on. Well, I've invited people to ask questions in the chat. One question was to Brian. Are the school trips free? And do you get any federal or local funding for the community chefs and the apprentices?
Yeah, the school trips are free. The local school district, contributes some money, and then we have a soil and water conservation district that has an education program, and so we get a grant through them as well to help pay for the school trips. Our organization in general is funded about 50% by government and foundation grants, about a 25% fee for service. So that would be like for the vegetables, contributions that people make going to the community dinners. And when we aren't in the pandemic, normally we have summer camp going on. And so there's fees for that. And the last 25% is individual and corporate donations. So, we have this mixed revenue source, which has proved to be really stable over the years. And so, our apprenticeship program is funded this way. So is the community chef program, federal grants and donations and so on.
Great, thank you. I have a question for all of you. Working with so many people, how do you resolve disputes or disagreements that take place?
I'm not really a good person to ask. I can't think of any. And you asked us to prepare for that question, but I can't think of any. But one thing I can say is that maybe there's not conflicts or disputes amongst our members or between me and my members, but there is sometimes some people that are a little bit more difficult to communicate with. And for them, I make a lot of time. They take a lot of time, but it's kind of my job to give them a lot of time. So I'll have, sometimes they call me whenever they want, and they just want to complain about something, and I just listen to them and agree with them, give them a lot of, give them my, my ear, but then I also have firm boundaries around them too. I hear you, thanks for your feedback. Now I have to go. We'll try and improve in that way. That's it. But I see it as part of my job to deal with the more difficult members. We are a cross section of the community, so there's some interesting characters.
Would anyone else like to answer that question? Shinji, you have to go on. You're on mute, Shinji.
Yeah. The cautious that we really feel is that on the beginning we have a really good team of members, but when the generation goes one after another, there are some generation gap that the consumer cannot talk each other, or they have different kind of interest, and more the CSA become stronger in a tie with the farmers. The organization become like very close society that make it difficult for the outsider. Sometimes the younger members complain that they always talk about the kids issue of my Hashimoto farm. They just talk about like how the kids of Hashimoto, what kind of a school they goes, but they cannot follow up with such a private issue. And more that the relation become deeper and deeper. I think the CSA become closer and closer to the outsider, and that I think the program is that how we can make open to the new members, and how they can bring them all together. That's, I think, the issue that we have to have, or else we'll start losing the newcomers. So I think a generation gap is something that we have to overcome, and how we can make tie together, and how we can make them discuss all together.
That's really
I
interesting.
can try to answer as well.
Yes, please.
Of course, we do have conflicts because we are a group of human beings, and therefore, and we are all very different. What we try and do is to say that when some people have some misunderstanding with the farm on the way in which it goes, is to always bring back the issue to the group and to not personalize any conflict. And there are boards, and there are general assemblies, and there are working groups. And what we try and do is to play on governance, so that the one issue between one person and another is put to the group, so that we're trying to solve the issue. So never keeping one nasty comment just for us, but to bring it to the group, so that if you have a problem, then we discuss it all together. And I think what Shinji was saying is really important. To how do we go outside the CSA to bring people to get people with us, and how do we not close? We make sure that we're not closing the CSA, and that we're something that is very open. And I think we should always try and think events that will bring CSA values outside the CSA. What we're doing, for instance, this Sunday for Halloween, we know Halloween is actually something which is in France. It's really not in the culture of CSA movements. This is seen as a US thing, and but we see children more and more being interested in Halloween. And so what the CSA decided to do is we will go on the main village square, and we're doing soup, we're doing all kind of food things, and we're all trying to be in the party Halloween, and we're doing music and things like that. So basically, we're trying to bring our values on good food, but in the common space, and not to remain in our side with those that have the truth with the common food thing. No, we're doing, and we're exchanging, and we know Halloween is not a party with the values, especially because Halloween is in France, and I'm sure it's the same thing elsewhere. It's a very commercial party. So, but let's try and move it and bring our values in it. So we will probably be more reachable by young people from different communities that are not always in the CSA.
Thank you. Ryan, did you want to say anything about that?
Sure. I'll just say that within our community, I don't think that there is that much conflict. Most of the conflict that exists within our organization is between staff or between organizations. Really just, are we following our mission, vision, and values well? And so these conflicts can be really generative. discussions where, you know, we discuss the pros and cons of different situations, and are we doing this in the, you know, best way for our values or not. Of course, sometimes it always doesn't go that way, so I won't air out all of our dirty laundry, but when it does go well, it, you know, it's a structured conversation. Like Florent was saying, you know, using governance models and so on. From our CSA members, it's usually the conflict is that, you know, they don't know how to prepare these vegetables. They didn't quite realize the amount of cooking that they signed up for. And CSA just isn't, you know, it isn't a program for everybody, unfortunately. You've got to have time, and you've got to have, you know, like a desire to experiment in the kitchen and so on. It's really about learning a new cooking style. So that's all I have to add.
Okay, thank you. There's a question in the chat that comes from Mexico. Josefina Sendejas says, my admiration to Shinji's resilience and wisdom. I'd like to know more about how the new food co-op is doing, and if he thinks it will endure. What would be the keys for it, taking into account that climate change will keep going on?
Yeah, we also had a very important lecture by the Dr. Miguel from University of California. We invited him, and we had this seminar on agroecology. Before I had this seminar, we really thought that maybe rather than growing different kind of vegetable in the field, it's more efficient to focus on a few crops with lots of scientific knowledge and gain more profit. But actually, we more we go modern organic large-scale agriculture, we see less profit because we have to use lots of mineral fertilizer, commercial compost, and the yield become higher, but actually the profit become less, and the people has to hire more staff, and farmer become larger and larger. So I really noticed that the diversification of our farm is very important in the future when we face up with a global warming. The reason that I can survive with lots of climate damage, it is because that I grew different kind of a vegetable. So the vegetable goes like a bamboo and flexible. According to the temperature, according to the climate, I can always see some crops growing and surviving. So I think in the future, when we face up with this climate programs, the agroecological organic farm is really important for the survival of farmers, rather than the efficient, modern, large-scale organic farming.
Are the younger farmers that you trained following your path into agroecology?
Yeah, actually, this the food co project. My intern, who is now independent farmer, they also complain that they don't want to sell their products to the conventional market, but rather they want to diverse their farm. So two younger farmer joined to my group, and now we do this vegetable box with a consumer co-op.
That's great. Josefina, are you happy? Does that answer your question? Okay, wonderful. Well, I would like to ask all of you what advice you might have to a new person getting started with the CSA. Who would like to start with that? Shinji, go ahead.
Okay, actually, the organic market in Japan is not growing. So majority of consumers in Japan feel like pesticide that the government allows safety, so we don't have to worry about it. And in order to convince people how organic agriculture is important, it's one of the issues that we have still. Yeah, still. And so the many common Japanese customers tend to think that the eating organic, like minority of people who really, really more like greens, or like minority of a society, and we should not involve into such a people or so. So how how we can convince common customers that the organic farming is important, or make them understand about the food issue is a program that we still face in Japan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Natalie, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. It's a difficult question to answer. Elizabeth, you might be the best one to do this. I would have so much to tell a new farmer. There's so many different models of CSA around the world. Don't go with the one that you think seems cool. You've got to work out what your consumers want, because you need a lot of them to be able to make this your living. But my other advice might seem a little bit fundamental, but I've had a couple of young farmers that were inspired recently, in the last recent years, to start a small farm or rent a field from a farmer and start a CSA. They didn't do their soil tests and their vegetables weren't thriving. So have a lot of farming experience under your belt before you go alone. Do an apprenticeship, be really engaged in another CSA farm. And myself, not as a new CSA farmer, but some inspiration I will take from this and move forwards with is this really strong connection to mission and vision and goals that, Brian, you've talked about, making them really clear to everybody else. I often hold them in my head. And from what Shinji has talked about, collaborating with other farmers, eating a meal together, and making sure we're not out competing each other.
Brian, would you like to say something?
Sure. Florin kind of mentioned this, but in the States, there's just a lot of hurdles that folks have to jump over to start a farm. Access to land is really difficult. Access to the technical knowledge that you need to be farming it takes years of practice, and I feel like it's best obtained with hands-on working on another farm. But for CSA specifically, I prefer the term community farm rather than community supported agriculture, because CSA seems to imply that the farmer it's a one-way avenue where the farmer is being supported by the community. And instead, I feel like a successful CSA is one that is building community and creating community that supports everyone in it. And so if you're going to start a CSA, you really have to start building those relationships first. It's sort of like growing crops. First, you have to take care of your soil before you're going to see harvest. There are, of course, different models where it's just a food box delivery, and in that case, I feel like it's not actually a CSA at all. It's just a prepackaged, delivery of vegetables that you're getting from a single farm or whatever. Anyways, my advice is to build community first before farming.
Florent, did you want to say anything about that?
Sorry. I would say build trust. I would say be transparent and build trust with your members.
Can't hear
because I
you.
think you've got
Can you speak louder?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
That's better.
I would say build trust, be transparent on everything you do in your farm, be transparent on the accounts, be transparent on the techniques, be transparent on your problems, be transparent on your successes, and you will be paid for that transparency by trust. And this trust will be a huge asset during the first years and even after.
Thank you. I would like to read something that Tanya has written in the chat and then end with some questions about urgency. Very few times people take the chance to talk about the importance of not being alone. Since I turned to grow my own vegetables, I found it can be very lonely, a lonely path sometimes. It takes a lot of energy, and if nobody else joins you day after day, it becomes a difficult thing to keep doing it. Therefore, the importance of having pals that one can feel identified with. And so I also see why social activities become so very important. Culture then is made by both types of relationships, that with the plants and also with the people. I think that's some great wisdom there. I would like to turn back to our panelists and ask you, what do you think the top priorities should be for urgency to continue building CSA around the world? What can urgency do?
Okay. I was very impressed by the Brian, and I think community base is very important. When I visited Britain, the British people told me that there is a difference between the box scheme and CSA. CSA is about the community supported agriculture. Community involvement is very important. And the box scheme is just about the vegetable going to the customers, and they never visit the farm. So we really have to make clear distinction between the box scheme and the CSA. And we should not forget about the objective of a CSA. We also try to recruit lots of members and reach to the 1,500 members, but the more we don't see face-to-face relationship. And of course, I think the sharing the meals, eating together, really important, having party, rather than having like a very difficult democratic discussion. Eating together sometimes solve lots of a problem. Yeah, so this is very important. But when we see that the CSA growing into like a box scheme these days, using this IT system that the customer can choose the kind of vegetables that they want, and they don't have to accept the vegetable box that come seasonable. So I think the urgency have to try to bring more how we can bring like community-based agriculture rather than teach the know-how of how to increase the membership with the IT system. Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's good advice. Brian or Natalie or Florent, do you want to add to that? What can urgency do?
I love what urgency does for us, but I don't think that many other CSA farmers know about it in Norway. We try and promote it through our network, but it's not, I don't think it's well known. And that might be because people often feel, this is what this is about. Might be that they feel alone in their farming. Sure, they're farming with their community, but they and with this participatory Norwegian model, but they're busy and they're in their own, their own heads and on their own farms. So I like what Shinji suggested here, that there's so much knowledge within us that are, doing CSA farming and slightly active within urgency, that we could be making handbook and doing more collaborative sharing on how to build community and how to, what's working, what's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love just this farmer to farmer knowledge sharing is really valuable. And, doing that through different forums and different media, I think would be great, whether it be a handbook or, like this conference right now or what have you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when COVID is over, if we could get a wad of funding to bring CSA farmers to visit one another in different countries, it would make a big difference. It would really give a burst of enthusiasm.
And I think that's a great idea, Elizabeth. Norway has so much money, it's disgusting. Master's students here can do so much. So I visited Sweden. They invited me over there to talk about how their CSAs are struggling. They don't have a network. They didn't. They do now. But they didn't have a network, and they were not getting enough members for it to be a viable livelihood for these small farmers. And a lot of young people want to do farming. They can't do the Norwegian model. It's all about, like I said, culture, but it's also about public transport and logistics to get to the farms. Norwegian public transport is excellent, and Swedish public transport, not so much. But we were able to organise a master's student from the Agricultural University here studying agroecology to get lots of funding to get Swedish farmers and Norwegian CSA farmers to be meeting. COVID happened and it all happened online, unfortunately, but that's a possibility. If anybody has any ideas, I have access to lots of agroecology master students here that need something to write about, that need a thesis project. And I'd love for them to be working on, developing CSAs in different parts of the world if they're interested in that. And Norway funds it. Yeah, get in touch.
All right, that's a great offer. There is a final question in the chat, which is how can CSA support the super dense populations in large cities like London, Beijing, Shanghai,
as cidades superpopuladas como Beijing,
being invaded by the Portuguese? I would like to answer that question. When I was in Taiwan, they had this plan that they would ring every city with CSAs and make sure that there were enough CSA farms to feed the entire population. And I think that could be done in other large cities. It would mean using government-owned land, church-owned land, private land, turn it all over to be cultivated. I calculated that I saw a workshop on a US farm that does no-till organic. On 2 acres of land, they grow enough food for 300 families, 1,000 people. So in the United States, we just need 600,000 farms like that to feed the entire population. That kind of really intense, highly specialized or highly skilled farming can, on small farms, feed the population of the world. And that really
Será
is
que as
what's feeding
pequenas
a lot of the
fazendas podem
population of the
alimentar
world
a população
at
do
this
mundo?
time.
Temos que
The
pensar nisso.
global food system
O
is
sistema
leaving something
global
like 1 billion
de
people
alimentos
hungry every night.
deixa as
So with our
pessoas
small farms,
famintas, milhões de
we can do
pessoas.
this.
Podemos fazer isso.
Developing urgency, spreading the word, having
Desenvolvendo
many more
conhecimento,
CSAs and
espalhando
agroecology,
CSA
I think is the
pelo
answer.
mundo e
So thank you
agricultura.
all for your participation
Muito
today.
obrigada por todos, pela sua
Let's
participação de hoje.
invite many more people to join us. You can save the chat by clicking on the 3 dots right down in the corner. You can view this again on YouTube, on the Urgency channel. If there's anything you missed, or if you want to share it with other people, please do that. And thank you all, and have a wonderful late fall, early winter, and let's figure out a way to stop climate change together. There's a message. Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Shinji, so good to see you. And I'm so glad you found a way to continue farming. You're on mute.
Okay, nice to see you again. Yeah, sometime we should talk each other. Yeah, we should have time.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know if I'll ever get to Japan again. Who knows?
We'll think about inviting you in the future, maybe. You enjoy Japanese food.
I do, indeed.
Yeah. After Corona. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Laurent, good to meet you.
Yeah. Obrigado. Ciao.
Bye-bye, everybody. Obrigado.
Bye.